Alright, so I did 2 of these, and this one was okay. It was a little hard to get all of the spots, and the thickness changed a little bit. It's a little hard to control the router to keep it perfectly flat with regard to the template. This one, however, I don't think that one's going to work out well. It actually tore out this part of it, and the problem was it wants to bow up here, so this needs to be completely flat. And I tried to put the boards here. I even put this one on top there, and I put this one here like this, and I even clamped it down here. That was still not enough to prevent this from sticking up a little bit. So I'm going to have to come up with something a little different, especially for these thinner plywood where the thickness, there's just so little tolerance for error here. I stopped on I just did these 2 only because I need to come up with something different. So I'm going to go ahead and post this video so you can see, you know, we learn from our mistakes and our failures just as much as we do from our success, maybe even more so. So if anybody has any ideas on how to steady the router over these puzzle pieces that are sticking out like this, definitely let me know in the comments. I'm looking for ideas. I want to get this to work, and I think it will work if we can. This part out here worked really well. It was just as it got towards the end here, where and maybe it was just because it was this corner. This one might have worked out better. But even this, you can see it wants to come up, but at least it's not trying to twist up like this one was. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get this posted, and I'll be thinking about a solution. And definitely, if anybody has any thoughts or ideas, let me know also. All right, thanks. Bye. All right, what you just saw was the end of the recording, and I decided to put that part first in this video. So you can see the final result. It almost worked. We had a bit of a problem. And now I'll show you the video of how we arrived at this point. But I wanted to reorder the video a little bit because I was asking a question. I'm looking for advice, help. Anybody have any tips, ideas on how to make this better? I wanted to get that question earlier in the video so you have a better chance of hearing it and maybe responding. All right, here's the rest of the video. All right, so we're going to do a test of the puzzle piece templates, and this is one of them. I'm calling this A. There's another one that looks very similar to this that's called B. So we'll use the 2 A's on one side, and we'll use the 2 B's on the other side of the plywood. And the idea is that I've got 2 test pieces, very thin plywood. I want to try to join these. They will eventually overlap at about this, and see how the actual templates work in a real use. The first step is going to be to adjust the depth of the router with the guide bushing so that we get a full cut. So I have a piece of the same template that the jigsaw pieces template was made out of, and this is the thickness that the guide bushing is going to roll up against, and the amount of blade that sticks out after that is what's going to be cut. So if we put these 2 next to one another here, I want to get this now for a full through cut. So let's adjust this until I can just feel it cutting through, and a little bit more. There we go. We'll put this on a sacrificial piece underneath it so we don't have to worry about cutting into the workbench. We can put these off to the side now. here's what I'm talking about with the workbench. This is the pattern that we're going to be cutting, and this is the plywood that we want to cut out, and we're going to put it on top of this one that I've already made several grooves in, and we'll just put that, all three of these together like this, and clamp it down and then cut. Alright, now that we have the bit adjusted, we're ready to clamp. We need to figure out where we're going to clamp exactly. So let's get our straight edge and draw a line. Now we would want this cut to be 4 inches. We've got about 4 inches from this jigsaw down to this line. In one of the earlier videos I mentioned this center line here is the critical line for the cutting. So let's mark down a little bit, like let's say, oh, I don't know, let's go like 5. No, we're going to cut this out, so we don't want to waste any. So I was thinking, okay, let's leave us some room. But if this is an actual sheet of plywood, you don't want to leave a lot of room. We're going to be cutting this out, and so we know that this is 4 inches up to here. So let's go ahead and give us exactly 4 inches. And you'd want to make sure this is as square as we can be. Now normally a longer piece of plywood, we'd have a longer edge out here to make it straight. This is just a test, so it may not be completely straight, but this will be the line that we're going to use. So what this means is that every time you join plywood together, there's going to be 4 inches of plywood that you're going to lose in the process. So there's like a 4-inch waste here, but hopefully we'll get a more mechanically sound connection. So let's bring this center line right up to that line, and remember that we're going to be cutting this out not on the line, but it'll be about a 1/16 of an inch inside that line. So you want to make sure that when you're lining this jig up that you have at least a 1/16 of an inch. We've got about well, it's coming down to like maybe a, yeah, this is definitely either this plywood is not square to begin with, or I didn't draw the line square, but this part down here is starting to get at about maybe a little over 1/8 of an inch overlap here. So that's fine. We'll be able to work with that. Here's plenty of room. So I'll show you after we cut this out what I mean, but let me get it here on the edge of the workbench so I can clamp everything down. I don't have enough space here because my router table sticks up a bit, so I need to move some stuff out of the way. Right. Now we can clamp firmly. Just double check everything again. That might be a bit wobbly. I don't like that. Maybe I didn't need to move all that stuff after all. I'm going to shift everything down this way. You want to make sure everything is firm and solid and clamped down well. There we go. Okay. This is fine. This little bit of up and down like that is fine because when I'm pushing the router on it, I have a solid table underneath it now. Make sure everything's out of the way. Especially the cords. Make sure those are out of the way. Alright, our green light is on. Let's start completely off of the pattern. And let's start cutting. Yeah, I think everything is all lined up. Just double check there. The speed should be good. Alright, it's come to a complete stop. Now, if I was doing this off the camera, I would have my vacuum cleaner running at the same time and not have all this dust. But yeah, it fully cut it out. This is what we wanted. We've got all these cut-offs here. And the actual piece is just slightly larger than the jigsaw pieces, and it sticks out a little bit from this line that we have here. So if we remove the clamps now, and take this piece off, we're slightly above the line. Not by much. Actually, here we're right on the line. So that's why I'm doing this test. Here it's a little bit above the line. Okay, so good to know. All right, so the next step is to get this ready for the half laps. So for that, we need part 2 of this jig. I call it a jig, I should say pattern. We need part 2 of this pattern. And here, we want to line this up. Now I think I want to line it up right where it was on the other one. So that means I need to put this slightly below the line. So I'm going to have to remember that. So I don't want it right on this edge. Okay, so a couple things. One thing I noticed while I was clamping this down is that we're going to have a problem when we get to the end here, because I'm going to be routing down into here and the clamp's going to get in the way. And my piece is too small to be able to clamp it out here. So that would be, I mean, when I was building this jig, I left this big open area down here specifically for clamping. But because I'm trying to clamp this on the workbench, and this piece is so short, it doesn't extend out to the edge of the pattern here, we're not going to be able to go all the way here in one pass. So I may have to move the clamp and try to do that. But for right now, we need to adjust the depth. So I've got the router unplugged, and let's open that up. I've measured the thickness of the plywood. I think this is actually in millimeters, but when I measure this in inches, I think if I put it at about 3/32 of an inch cut, that should be about half of this plywood. So let's see what that gives us. And the reason I'm going with the inches is because this ruler that I have lines up so that from the end of this to the inch scale works out properly. But when this was made, the centimeters and millimeters side, for some reason the scale starts here. It doesn't start at this edge, so I can't really use this side for that. And I can't really use this side either because I need only 3/32, and we're gonna run out. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna measure how thick is this plywood. Let me hold it up here so I can see it a little better. So it looks like about a 1/16 of an inch after a quarter. The first quarter at 2/32. So we'll do a quarter and 5/32 total for this depth of cut. And I might need to get this a little bit closer to be able to see. Ideally, what I would do is I would test this on a couple pieces before I was doing the actual cut and make sure that this depth is dialed in exactly where I want it. But this is just a test anyway, so we're gonna go with this. Got the depth, got it all locked in. Let's plug the router back in. And now what we're going to be routing is not only all of this, so we're not just going to go on the outline, we're going to have to route all of this inside these openings here, as well as route all of this in these puzzle pieces that are sticking out. So there's going to be a lot of routing here. Okay, so that's looking like what we need to see. In order to route out here, we need some extra support out here. I just did one pass because I don't have any support out here. So let me get some plywood that will match the thickness. We want a couple of these, and let's do these one at a time. Okay, I turned it off because I actually got the wrong thickness. 2 of these will match the thickness of this board right here, but to give a solid platform, I need to match the level of this. So I need another piece of this pattern plywood. All right, that's looking good. I started to get far enough out that I'm going to need more support on this side. So here we go. I can use this one. Oh no, I cannot, because this is down by half the thickness. Okay, so I might have to rethink this, how we're going to do this. I think we need to get ready a piece of whatever we're cutting that's already trimmed out to half the thickness to be able to place in here along with this to be able to support the router, because my router base is not big enough to go all the way out to here. Maybe it can if I just put all the support on this side. Let's see if that'll work. So I'm not going to use this little thin part here. I'm going to use the part that has more to it. So let me just hold it to that side.